BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. Today, doing away with chemical cleaners in dairies and using electricity and oxygen instead.
So we calculated on this farm we could have up to 24% reduction in energy usage. So that's a massive saving in the amount of electricity we use because we eliminate that requirement for hot water.
We'll have more on that a little later. For the first time, precision-bred or gene-edited tomato plants have been developed specifically for a vertical farm operation where they have to produce a significant amount of fruit from a very small plant adapted for growing under artificial light. The miniaturised version of the gardener's favourite, Ailsa Craig, has been developed by Phytoform Labs at Rothamsted Research, but they're still at the development stage, so not on supermarket shelves. Charlotte Smith has been to see the plants for herself.
I'm Matt Klebeck, co-founder of Harvest London. We're a vertical farming company based in Leighton, and this is our vertical farm.
It's quite strange calling it a farm, isn't it? Because here we are, we're standing, we've got boot covers on, lab coats and, of course, hairnets. And yesterday I was on a farm, knee-deep in mud with rolling hills. This is a very different way of producing a similar product.
What we use here technology-wise is very similar to what you would find in a lot of commercial glasshouses. It's just been sort of repurposed. So we're growing indoors under LED lights, and the plants are stacked up in levels, kind of like a set of shelves. And what that allows us to do is really tightly control the environment in there, give the plants the most optimum growing conditions, but it also really allows us to combat the importing of food and growing food out of season. Really, that's what we try and do, is we try and sort of replace the importing of food from other countries. Hello, Harry. Hello. How are you doing? So we grow primarily soft herbs and leafy greens. Our customers are almost exclusively restaurants and food service in London.
Now I can see the basil, I can see some of the other herbs and salad leaves, but just here on our right, is that a tomato?
They are. There's a batch of tomatoes here. They're quite young at the moment. We've just harvested the latest batch. So these are brand new, I'm not sure anyone else is growing them, trial small tomatoes specifically bred for vertical farming.
And they have to be specifically bred because obviously if you imagine a tomato plant, it's long and tall. Whereas here they don't have that luxury. The space between the shelves is what, a couple of feet?
Yeah.
They've got to be little, which is where you come in.
Yeah, hi, I'm Will Pelton. I'm the co-founder of Phytoform. We are a UK-based biotech company that uses artificial intelligence and genome editing to develop new genetic solutions for crops. And indeed, we created this tiny tomato.
Surely the shorter it is, the fewer tomatoes it has space to produce.
That's definitely true. So per plant, our tomatoes are less high-yielding, right, than like something that's 2 or 3 meters. But where we lack in height, we make up for in planting density.
At the moment, these are not for sale because they're not allowed to be, because you've gene-edited these to produce them.
Yeah, so we use the term, we've used precision breeding to develop these crops. The first raft of legislation which allows us to trial these plants has already gone through Parliament, but we're now waiting for the secondary legislation which will allow us to commercialise these plants and put them into the food chain.
Are you both confident that there is a market for them? Because people have been very suspicious of this sort of approach to breeding.
I'm optimistic that there's a market for them. I think that the public is obviously open-minded about this sort of thing if you look at other countries that are doing it. In the US, precision breeding and actually more broadly GM has been widely adopted by a lot of crops. My belief is that it's perfectly harmless. And especially at this sort of stage, what we're doing, I think, is what is important with precision breeding versus genetic modification is what Will and his team are doing is they're not adding anything foreign to these plants. They're just taking what is already there and speeding up the breeding process by making small edits. It's nothing that wouldn't be done by traditional growers. It would just take a lot longer.
Is this the future then that I'm looking at? Small tomato plants on a shelf in Hackney?
I think in countries like the UK, we eat an incredible amount of tomato. I think over £1 billion worth of tomatoes every year. And we can't really grow them outside in an efficient way. So no, I totally think vertical farms are going to be the future for these sorts of crops.
It is, though, using quite a lot of energy in here, isn't it? You've got the lights, you've got the warmth, it's energy hungry.
Sure. I mean, it's all powered by renewable energy, and as these facilities scale up, the economies of scale completely shift. You can move away from the grid, you can start generating your own power. But we've got a lot of things here that are more important to solve than that question. We've got to crack pollination, we've got to look at the densities, we've got to prove these varieties work, yields, flavour, how to pick them, which ones look best, where the market is for them, and those sort of nuts and bolts questions around energy I know are solvable further down the line.
Matt Klebeck with Charlotte Smith. Theft of machinery, fly tipping, cattle rustling, hare coursing, these are all crimes farmers might have to face. Even though budgets are tight, some police forces have been bolstering their rural teams to help combat crime in the countryside. One area which has seen an increase in resources is Warwickshire. Our reporter Bob Hockenhull joined officers there out on patrol.
I'm with the police in a van patrolling the countryside around Atherstone in North Warwickshire. One of the officers with me is PC Andy Steventon.
We're very fortunate to have a dedicated rural crime team. It's an area maybe of policing that historically hasn't been given the resources or the assets that it deserved. We now have, currently we've got 7 officers, 7 PCs, sergeant and inspector that cover the team.
We stopped by a large open field where the farmer has been having problems with illegal hare coursing. The team are deploying a drone to check for criminal activity, while the farmer Chris Corbett explains to me what's been happening.
We're getting regular visits of an evening through the night, and they'll drive around fields, they'll smash gates off, they'll go through hedges, and they have a complete disregard for the damage they're doing and the people in the area. And if we go near them, confront them, we get threatened, we get verbally abused. I mean, they'll even sort of try to hit us in vehicles. It's frustrating because the damage they do to the crops and the mess they make from sort of now all the way through till March. And the crop damage is quite considerable in places.
Trespassers have also been coming at night to take part in lamping, using spotlights to track down quarry for dogs to kill. PC Joe Dickin describes one recent case here.
The farmers identified a chap out lamping on the lane. It was about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30. Response officers have attended on blue lights and sirens basically, and there's been a short pursuit of the vehicle take place in the locality, which has resulted in a RTC with both vehicles basically being damaged. The officers have had to receive medical treatment from that incident, and the offender has managed to get away.
So how common is hare coursing and lamping?
Once the crops are cleared, the combining, it starts, but I would say that we're getting 2 or 3 calls a week, if not more, probably.
We're on the road again.
I'm just going to call in on a local farmer. He's had some issues with his cattle released from the field, basically.
Richard White has experienced repeated problems with unknown offenders. Having the police checking in regularly is a reassurance.
We've had everything, haven't we? Sheepdog worrying, dumping, tipping in the gateways and in tyres and all sorts of things. Every time we have a problem, they're at the end of the phone. Before we had this team, we give up. We didn't bother reporting these accidents because nothing got done. But now they are really good.
PC Andy Steventon believes the rural crime team in Warwickshire has made a big difference.
We've recovered close to £4 million worth of products in the last 5 years since the team was created. Those unfortunately may have been items that before that time members of the public would be being given a crime number, and that might have been all that they would have heard from the police. One of the best parts of the job genuinely is returning stolen items back to a farmer, especially when it's their livelihood, most of the time in reasonable condition as well, and they can carry on doing what they need.
Do you think rural crime is becoming more of a problem?
I think it's always been a problem. I think landowners and farmers have dealt with it themselves a majority of the time historically. I think the reporting of it now gives us a better picture of what the issues were, and then that will drive our response to it. So when we get that information we can respond, whereas previously we didn't hear about it, so very difficult to respond.
PC Andy Steventon. Cleaning and disinfecting dairy milking equipment, whether robotic or manual, uses large amounts of energy and significant quantities of chemicals. It's a necessary but expensive process. So farmers are watching with interest the team developing a system that claims to do away with both those things. Scientists at the UK Agritech Centre are collaborating with a company called Oxitec on a method that uses electricity and oxygen instead. Fiona Clampin has been to the South West Dairy Development Centre in Somerset, where Chris Payne showed her the before and after.
The cows come into the robots and are milked 3 times a day, and 3 times a day also we wash the robot system internally using a combination of hot water and chemical. And we maintain a boiler of water at 95 degrees 24 hours a day.
So what we've come to see is this kind of magic black box which is behind a couple of doors here.
That's right, this is the Oxitec unit. Instead of using the boiling water and chemical, it uses the ozone which is produced by the Oxitec unit.
Hi, my name is Paul Morris. I'm the CEO of Oxitec Solutions. Wherever you need hot water or you need chemicals to clean and disinfect, this system can replace it without any downstream environmental impact.
How does it work?
So the system has a very, very small cell, and that cell has a tiny amount of electricity going through it. We put the cell in the water, and the water is charged up, so it's energized and it oxidates. And that high oxygen water becomes a disinfectant. So for 20 minutes, first of all, it's disinfecting everything that's in there to make it pure and clean. And when it's done its job, it just returns to water again.
So is it to do with the electrical charge, is that right? That's what's replacing the chemicals?
The oxygen is replacing the chemicals. Chemicals such as chlorine, chlorinated disinfectants, they are using a lot of oxygen to disinfect water. We just remove the chlorine part, and we're using water itself as the disinfectant temporarily, and then just plain old water when we're done with it.
Well, I'm going to come out of the robotics area because it is a little bit noisy in here, and come through to meet Rob Morrison, who is head of farms at the UK Agritech Centre. Rob, how do you see this benefiting farmers in the future?
So we calculated on this farm we could have up to 24% reduction in energy usage. So that's a massive saving in the amount of electricity we use. And that's used for heating the water up mainly because we eliminate that requirement for hot water. That's the primary benefit to the farmer. There is a secondary benefit which is also financial, which is we remove the need for using so much chemical on the farm. So all the cleaning chemicals we can do with the Oxitec system. Now, that seems like a huge benefit to the farmer, but it's also a benefit to each and every one of us because by removing that carbon footprint of delivering chemical drums from Europe, delivering them to farm, single use, we remove all that out of the life cycle of the farm.
Now, at the moment, it is technology that's under development. So for farmers, this would be a huge risk, and if it didn't work out, it would make their milk unmarketable.
What we've seen here is that when the system first turns on, there is a massive disruption to the milk supply, and we can control that within about 24 hours. And there is work going on currently to eliminate that wastage of that 24-hour period. After that point, things stabilise down and we get a lot better results out of the system itself. Like any new technology, we have to trial it on various types of farms, various breeds of animals, and we have to work out the whole landscape here. But what we've done on this farm is really trialled it, and we've seen a positive result. If we can replicate that, then we've cracked the game-changing technology for the industry.
Rob Morrison from the UK Agritech Centre. And that's all for today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Beatrice Fenton. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.